because they are so high tension ability to see beyond the human realm. It's got to be very slow, and your mind is constantly on being what you are, slightly visible, and yet not visible enough to understand that's a slightly visible human. It's just a strange, very light smoke, and that's all they're seeing. And it's new to them. It's an experience. They've seen ghosts, they've seen wind blow things through, and they've seen a lot of humans, but they've never seen anything like this. And when it starts to make them feeling real, real good, do everything slowly. If you turn, do it very slowly, keeping your mind in focus on what you want to be. Right. Always. And then, slowly put your other hand out. Very slowly. Very slowly. And let them, you're petting with one hand, and here's another whiff of smoke coming to their nose. And slowly do their cheek sides. And when you go from one side to the other, don't do it as I'm showing you. Here I'm going slow and nice. And then I went over here. That's too damn fast. Slow and nice. And then very, let them kind of stop and sniff. And then slow and nice. Meanwhile, you're scratching its back or rubbing its back, feeling good back there. And here's another, that first sensation through the one hand, it's getting it now through the other hand while it's getting petted from another area. And then very, very slowly sit down, if you can get a chance, or kneel very, very slowly. You don't want to appear tall. It's shocking. Right. But more towards their area of standing. And even a big bear, you want to go down low. You don't want to be threatened by standing. Yet there might be huge compared to you. But be subtle, like, I don't care. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not submissive, but like, I don't give a damn. You're my dream, and that's it. And then slowly start appearing a little stronger, until you are full strength you. And by then they're hooked. You're their friend. That's it. You are their friend. And I've had one occasion where a very vicious dog, I did that too, and this dog has terrorized everybody up and down the construction crew. And here I am, one of the guys in a backhoe driving down the road, getting closer and closer and closer to me. And here I am sitting here with this dog, petting him, talking with him. And by then we made some good friends. It took me, it took me 20, 35 minutes to become solid to him, and a non-threat, a friend. And to that as a solid, a non-threat, a friend. And he was fine with me. I wasn't threatening him, I was making him feel good. And what an interesting human, And I'm petting this very vicious animal. And the guy slows down to a stop, and he's not going to jump down. He cracks open the side door, and he looks down, and he says, Red Elk, only you could do that, And in truth, everybody can do it, but I'm the only one that knew the trick. And we'd sit there, and the dog and I would chat, and he said, you see those two coyotes? Where? Up there on the side of the hill. Where? Do you see it? No. Like, come on, look. Yeah, it was a conversation like that. Don't you see them? No, I don't. I said, I'm not a dog. I don't have your eyesight. I don't have your ability to sniff and smell. And he pointed them out. And I still couldn't see them. And then a few minutes later, I never did see the dang animals. A few minutes later, he said, do you see the deer? And I'm looking up there at the hillside. No, over here, this way, off to my right, real close. Couldn't see it. And he says, can't you even smell it? I said, no, people can't do what you do. And this is so frustrating to him. He said, well, look there, and he pointed out an area to keep my eyes focused on, and lo and behold, by focusing there for a minute or better, the deer was there. And this poor animal, I got to train this two-legged idiot, that type of deal. But it was really fun. I'd go back and we'd chat in the next few days. Had a great time. And, just for the fun of it, for the tape, I asked him if he'd ever had any children. And he says, no, I tried, I think he said twice. And he says, I was a little excited and I wasn't too good. He didn't connect. But he wanted to do it again. He thought he was getting the hang of it. He's matured a little bit more. But anyway, really, really a nice friend. A nice people. Dog, four-legged people. Mm-hmm. But, gosh, I've been out on vision quest and had coyote come up and sniff the top of my head, and I've walked by a wild coyote. I thought maybe it was hurt by, it was close to the freeway, so I told it I was coming down to check it out and set with, not a problem, not a stretch of the arm to reach out and touch it. Not a stretch. I was that close. And I sat there and talked to it, and this animal's looking at me, and his ears tilting, and finally I said, are you okay? Now I told him I was coming down to check it out. And it seemed okay, it wouldn't send back, but it wasn't fearful, and it wasn't leery. And I says, I would like to touch you and find out if you're hurting anywhere. And it said no. But it said no. And slowly got up, and you know how dogs can, the front legs go way forward and the back, and they stretch. And he, looking at me, just turned his head and looked at me after that stretch and grinned. You know how some dogs can really grin. And then casually walked off. That was his first encounter with a human like that. They're shooting at him or something like that. And just he never did run. He just casually, I was just resting here, but I don't want to be any closer to let you touch me. And we were having fun, and it would have been a great time if he hadn't wanted to touch me. But thanks, and slowly walked up. Never even started to trot, just slowly. Had a good time.
Now,
okay.
The other one, the other invisibility that you talked about right before this is where you take the people out of your dream.
Sure, they're your dream. So
Right.
you can make them dream you out.
Oh, okay.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I do that a lot with herds of cows and stuff like that. Or I would go into another form of no threat. I was coming down from a house I lived way up in the woods on a dirt road, and here was one of the farmers that owned some of this very primitive farmland, and he had, I think, 10, maybe as many as 13, but 10, 12 head of cattle, and they were very, very, very agitated. And this guy was, he's a drinker anyways, he's always got a red nose. But this guy was just sweating streams of water. And these cattle see me coming, and off they go, and I walked down the road, and I said, what's up, Joe? Or I think, no, that's his brother. I think his name was Pete. And, matter in a wet hand, and let me know in no uncertain terms every word in the book. You've been chasing, I got cattle for over an hour, Well, the fence had fallen down, and his cattle had gotten out. And he's trying to get them back into this huge, almost a half mile of beautiful land. And they didn't want to go. And he's running up and down, trying to get these dweebs in there. And I said, Joe, don't worry about it. I'll go and I'll go and get them. You just stay here. I said, but back way down. Now the fence that they'd gone through was way past him. So I said, just open the gate. Open it real wide and then back down. And I'll get him in here for you. And he's looking at me, and